Hello, fellas. Welcome aboard the Bobu again, home of Magic the Gathering strategies, Hearthstone, and many other games, and procreational and funky arts. Right, so I explained the deck innovations for the Abzan Fauna slash Abzan Melira, and for the main deck, and now moving on to the sideboard. So I've been tweaking the sideboard for a month or two right now, in the preparations for different premier events in the modern format, and shifting a few cards pretty much every week. But the pieces which were in the deck all the time were the hate cards for affinity matchups in the form of Kataki, which is a tutorable target because of Fauna Shamans and Coil Calling. So that's why you play that over like Crippling Corrosion or Stony Silence or things of that nature. And then Fracturing Gust feels like a card which in the deck full of mana dorks like Noble Kirak and Birds of Paradise is much better than a card like Stony Silence, because you can pretty much stave off the early pressure with some action of your own because you have a lot of early drop creatures. But this card basically gains you a lot of life and shuts down everything, and it's at instant speed and all that. In many decks it's just way better than Crippling Corrosion. While Stony Silence is way better during the early turns, but it doesn't shut Affinity deck entirely, as much as people would tell me that, yeah, like if you ever play it more or less early, they can never win in that game unless they remove it. And that's another thing, because some Affinity builds would probably anticipate opponents boarding in Stony Silences, and this one is an instance which blows them up, and then you can go off or beat them down with whatever you have. So it's nice that they can't just kill it with a Nature's Claim or something like that. So there are some benefits of playing something which is immune to disenchant or naturalize kind of cards. And then of course, two of the timely reinforcements have been pretty much in the sideboard for the entire time I've been tuning and playtesting this type of deck. So they're good against Burn, they're sort of fine in the mirror, they're good against Zoo. So technically they're just more versatile for this deck compared to things like Leyline and Sanctity, which is way better against Burn, but this gives you life quickly and gives you some blockers for opposing Goblin Guides and Eidolons. And in many matchups it's just decent. It's fine against Affinity as well, for example. Well, not super much. I feel like you're already bringing so many cards that maybe like that's extra to bring in Timely, but my point here is that Timely is really decent, not just in burn matchups, but in a lot of other creature matchups. Like Delver, for example, which is a bit of extinguished archetype, but I've seen some Grixis Delvers or Blue-Red Delvers, some kind of tempo decks. So, and then the second Spellskite to protect the combo or to negate decks like Boggles, in fact, to some extent, help you out against Affinity, because if counters from Argbound Ravager, then it can block Edge Champion and a lot of other things. So it's good even against Amulet of Vigor deck, Amulet Bloom, because you just redirect the targets from the ability of their pump lands, so that you don't die super fast and that gives you time to draw into removal for their primeval titans and stuff like that. Then Maelstrom Pulse is a card to catch them all, because even though I like the decays, but it's a sweet card to have against other Abzan mid-range card decks, because of Lingering Souls, and it's good against black-white tokens, Snooks, and Anthem effects, like so some random enchantment to pump out creatures, or kills Bitter Blossom, or kills a Soaring, so many things. Our card's been here for a long time. 2 copies of Path to Exile. It's just great against so many matchups. It's one of the best creature removals in the entire format, and if you have access to whites, you pretty much have to play it. It's just great. And then Frag Tusk is a utility card which I can tutor off. It's good in so many matchups. Of course, Burn against all the blue decks is good, because they sometimes take out part of their combo and set into a control deck. So it's good against traditional blue control decks as well. And it's great against Abzan mid-range as well. I used to have another kind of interesting 5-drop here, one of Bloodburn of Viscopa, but I'm not sure it's that needed. It's only insane against Abzan decks. Of course, there are quite plenty of them, but the problem is it felt like a win more card. Most of the time with such deck like mine, I wanted either a disruptive piece or a way to protect my combo, so there wasn't a huge need for those ridiculous hate bears. Those hate bears are quite important for this deck as well, but it doesn't directly shut down any deck. It's just very nice against any Abzan, because they can't really deal with it outside of Tarmogoyfs or things like that. So because it's so clunky, it doesn't exactly shut down anything, even though you can tutor for it with Fauna Shamans or Quarter Callings, but it's still like so inconsistent. Then the cards that I pretty much had to put into the sideboards from the last roll, it's against all the blue decks, against all the control decks with a lot of removal and so on. Just a great hate bear in quite a few matchups where you want it. And Twin decks is quite a popular archetype, and some Grixis variants are also there. It's not so great in the mirror against other Abzan decks, like the mid-range versions, but it's still quite solid. They can't kill it, and it blocks everything, and it stays in there because of regeneration and so on. So the card you probably bring in the pseudo mirrors. The instant Shriekmaw in the deck. It used to be a main deck or an absolute must-have for sideboard, because you absolutely had to run it to kill opposing Linvala. In the mirror, it was just so brutal. If you can't kill Linvala, it's pretty hard to win in the mirror. But Linvala is now not really a thing anymore, because it was more of a cards for mirrors of pod decks, and now pod is gone, and Linvala lost a lot of its value. Plus, well, you would actually see it in green-white hate bears deck sometimes out of the sideboard, but I still don't like it. It shuts down Twain. It shuts down a few other decks as well, a little bit, but not so much. So because decks like this are not really a thing anymore, so that's why Shriekmaw lost its value. But there's one important thing. Solar of Temptation is one of or two of has been so popular in quite a few decks, including Twin and all the variants of Grixis. Uh, a lot of decks. Bog, the Jared's Fabiano version, well, or you can call it Sultai Control. It's been there. It's good to kill like Fractusks and Tarmogoyf out of that deck. All sorts of things, a solid 2 for 1, or it's also a way for you if you can have a early Fauna Shaman against Amulet decks. It's a way to kill a Primeval Titan. It might be too late, but if they don't have Amulet of Vigor in play at that moment, it might be fine to tutor for it for 1 mana and then evoke it for 2, and then maybe you're still in the game. But still, it's rough. It's also a way to kill Eldrazi's from Tron deck, though that means you're unlikely to win, but it gives you a chance. If you have something like you draw a Fulminator Mage and then you trigger for Shriekmaw, you maybe can disrupt their Tron pieces with Fulminator. And then kill actually this Immerkul or Ulamog or something like this with a Shriekmaw. So there are some fringe implications of it, or applications, but mainly it's in here for the opposing Solar of Temptation. And then finally, Fulminator Mage. I went up to the full set of them because they're so great in so many matchups, and most of Abzan mid-range decks, they play 3 or 4 in the sideboard as well. I upped this number myself too. Used to run here Phyrexian Revoker for Tron matchup and mainly and something else, but then again, why not run just a full set of Fulminators? So I used to run 1, then 2, and then went up to 3 and 4. There was also an Maven Mind Sensor in the deck, which I found to be too clunky. Some people really like it, even in this kind of archetype. Also in the green-white Hate Bearers, but in the Hate Bearers deck it's much better because of the Ghost Quarters and maybe Tech Edges, and then the Arbiter, which makes them not able to search unless they pay 2 more, and so on. So it's much better in the deck, which is much more focused on the Hate Bear components. As a building effect for the building factor for your deck. But it's just so great. It's better just to run a full set over those very situational cards. Mind Sensor could be cool, but again, they can do some stuff anyway, and you have to be so timely. But with Fulminators, you just run it hopefully on turn 2 and so on via one mana Monodork on turn 1, and then just nuke their lands. And decks like Bug Control or Sultai Control is really annoying, and a lot of decks which run man lands, any of them, but especially the decks which run Creeping Tar Pits, are problematic, and it's good against in fact it's good against Amulet, just nuking their lands. I just want to draw this card as often as possible, just all the time. Just there's so much and so many matchups. And while Mind Sensor, okay, like you could maybe sometimes fizzle Amulet deck as well a little bit, but Fulminator sets them back much better, because then they can always have the Black Pact to kill your Mind Sensor, then Green Pact to fetch for Titan or something like that, and then just win on the spot. While Fulminator, you can play it early, and it's a much better tempo kind of proactive card, actually, even though it seems like it's a reactive card, but it's almost always good. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Please tell me what you feel like about this sideboard and what else I could try out, and how would you tune up this sideboard for this deck for a particular uh, metagame in your area, or for any generic metagame. Cheers, bye, until next time.